Hello and welcome to the fourth and final book review for the McBride and District Public Library Black History Month celebration. Today I'm talking about the recently published Punching the Air by Ibi Zoboi and Yusef Salaam. Yusef Salaam was one of the young men known as the Exonerated Five, wrongly convicted in the Central Park jogger case from April 1989, when there was a series of violent incidents against different people in Central Park. He is now one of the Exonerated Five. So they were imprisoned wrongly following their conviction and were not released until 2002. It is a novel in verse, so what that means is the entire book is told in a series of poems, often beautifully illustrated. The central character in this, it's not exactly Yusef's story. It is a fictionalized account of a young man called Amal, and his part in an attack against a white man. It's about representation. So Amal is an artist. He's also a poet, a spoken word poet, a rapper. And in many ways, this book is about that idea of trying to get your story represented, trying to get your truth out there. It is incredibly moving, and I'd be surprised if anyone got through this without crying. There are also lots of allusions in this to slavery. So like I've been talking about in previous reviews for Black History Month, that idea that inequality, that racism, that these things are still legacies of slavery. So for example, I just want to read this short poem, which is called Slave Ship. And you can see how that past is kind of woven into this young man's present. What happened? I try to ask Clyde, but the other voices in the courtroom drown out my words. And it's like water is slowly rising from the floor, reaching my feet, climbing up my legs, as if this courtroom is a sinking ship. But everybody else, with their freedom, can swim up to the surface for some air to safe shores. And I'm the only one with an anchor tied to my ankles, heavy metal pulling me down until I drown. So I turn around to see the freedom I'm leaving behind, to see the home I'm leaving behind. I want so bad to paint this picture, to crop out all the noise and zoom in on the people who love me. And when I was reading this, it put me in mind of one of my favourite artists, which is one of the Black Panther artists, from the civil rights movement, Emory Douglas. You may be familiar with some of his very iconic posters for the Black Power movement. But this is the particular image that I was thinking of, which, as you can see, is making that direct connection between young Black people incarcerated in the prison system and the past of slavery. And there are so many ways of thinking about that connection. It's obviously in a literal way in terms of shackles, in terms of the loss of freedom, but then it's also about inequality, right? If we look at the disproportionate numbers of Black men and women in prisons around the world, it's very clearly about inequality. It's very clearly about racism, just like the slave trade. So this book, it also has, so these are some of the images I was mentioning. It has these images, it weaves kind of Amal's doodles, Amal's artworks in with his poems. And it's also about the love and support that he receives from his friends and family while he's incarcerated. You know, the letters are like life rafts, if we continue the metaphor of drowning, the things that keep him afloat. So it's a beautiful book, it's a moving book, it's an important book. It's actually classified as young adult fiction. You will find it on the new shelf in the McBride Library. Thank you for joining me each week for these short book reviews and for celebrating Black History Month.